The void of space is patient. It does not judge. It does not pity. It simply exists, an endless ocean of darkness punctuated by distant suns, each one a witness to the rise and fall of civilizations across a million worlds. But on this particular cycle, in this particular corner of the galaxy, the void was about to bear witness to something it had never seen before. The colony world of Kepler-7 had been home to the Vex'thari for nearly 10,000 years. A crystalline species, beings of living silicon and bioluminescent patterns, they had built a civilization of impossible beauty. Cities of refracted light rose from crimson plains. Their ships sang through space with a frequency that could shatter asteroids. They were old, they were powerful, and they had never known defeat. Until the Krell came, the invasion had begun without warning. One moment, the Vex'thari were tending their light gardens, composing their symphonies of commerce and art. The next moment, the sky itself had turned red with fire. The Krell were the antithesis of everything the Vex'thari represented. Where the Vex'thari were elegant, the Krell were brutal. Where the Vex'thari built, the Krell consumed. They were a hive species, millions of identical insectoid warriors moving with terrifying unity, led by their overmind, a singular consciousness that controlled every soldier, every ship, every tactical decision. In 72 hours, the Vex'thari lost half their standing military. In 100 hours, they lost their orbital defense grid. In 140 hours, they were fighting from underground bunkers, watching the cities of light turn to ash above them. She waited for responses. She waited for the great Tyrellian Confederation to mobilize. She waited for the Zine coalition to dispatch their renowned strike fleets. Silence answered her. One by one, every major power in the region sent their regrets. The Confederation was dealing with border disputes near the Orion Expanse. The coalition was committed to defensive operations along the rim. Everyone, it seemed, was too far away, too committed, too cautious. Everyone except one species that no one had even bothered to invite to the conversation. Earth. Humanity had entered the galactic stage only 40 years prior. 40 years. A blink. An infant's cry in a conversation that had been ongoing for millions of years. To the established powers, humans were curiosities. Brilliant, perhaps, their technological advancement had been unusually rapid for a young species. But brilliant in an unpredictable way. They lacked grace. They lacked refinement. They were loud and chaotic and entirely too emotional for serious diplomatic discourse. Most importantly, they had no standing military that anyone considered relevant. Earth had chosen pacifism as a path. It had chosen to join the Interstellar Covenant with agreements to aid in scientific research, trade, and cultural exchange, but minimal military commitments. Their government had decreed that humanity's strength would be shown through innovation, compassion, and cooperation, not through military might. The galaxy had found this quaint. When the Vex'thari beacon reached Earth Station 7, the message was received by Communications Officer Derek Chun, a man in his middle years with steady hands and steady eyes. He read the distress call twice. Then he did something that would have caused the Galactic Council to laugh had they known about it. He forwarded it up the chain of command anyway. Captain Mahira Hassan was in her office reviewing supply manifests when the call came through. She had commanded the UNEF carrier Endeavour for 6 years. 6 years of scientific surveys, humanitarian missions, disaster relief operations. 6 years of proving to the galaxy that humanity's way was the way of service, not aggression. She listened to the distress call in complete silence. Then she asked her tactical officer a simple question. How long from here to Kepler-7? At standard pace? 37 days, Captain. But if we pushed the drives. We pushed the drives, Hassan said. All hands, prepare for departure. We're going to Kepler-7. Her first officer, Commander James Liu, appeared in her office moments later. His expression was carefully neutral, but his voice carried a question. Ma'am, without authorization from Earth Command, this is a violation of protocol, Hassan finished. I know, James. I'm doing it anyway. The Krell will be there, Captain, and we're a science vessel with defensive systems, not a warship. Hassan stood and looked out at the stars beyond her window. Are we? Because as I read the specifications, we have thermal cannons rated for asteroid drilling, point defense lasers, and enough shield generators to protect a small city. That makes us the most heavily armed response that's currently en route to Kepler 7. She turned to face him. And if we don't go, 3 billion people die. So we're going. Lou held her gaze for a moment. Then he nodded. I'll notify the crew. They won't like losing shore leave. Hassan smiled slightly. No, they won't. But we're human. We help. Even when it's inconvenient. The Endeavour crossed the void at speeds that made her hull sing. For 17 days, the crew prepared for a scenario they had never truly believed they'd face. Combat with an organized military force. On Kepler 7, Commander Aliz received a transmission that made her bioluminescent patterns flicker with confusion. This is Captain Mahira Hassan of the Earth vessel Endeavour. We received your distress call. We are responding with a full medical and tactical team. ETA 20 days. A human ship was coming. A single human ship. Aliz shared this information with her war council. The response was mixed. One vessel, Admiral Nathaniel, who had lost 3 fleets in the opening hours of the invasion, asked with what might have been called bitter amusement, "The humans send us one vessel?" Perhaps they mistake this for a rescue operation rather than a species-ending extinction event. But another council member, Scholar Vex'thari, leaned forward. Captain Hassan said medical and tactical team. Humans, they come to help, yes? Even knowing they may die. It changes nothing, Nathaniel said flatly. One human ship is a candle against a supernova. It will make no difference. And by every logical measure, he was right. The Endeavour dropped out of hyperspace 50,000 kilometers from Kepler 7, and what Captain Hassan saw made her blood run cold. The sky above the colony was carpeted with Krell warships. Not dozens, not hundreds, thousands. Like insects on a corpse, they swarmed and dug and consumed. Status report, Hassan said quietly. Passive scans show Krell fleet strength at approximately 4,000 combat vessels across all classes. Her tactical officer reported. We're detecting mining operations in the crust. They're harvesting the planet itself. Estimated time until planetary integrity failure, 30 hours. Hassan closed her eyes for a moment. They knew there was no way to win this in a conventional sense. No way to push back 4,000 ships with one. But they hadn't come to win a military victory. Open a channel to Commander Aliz. Moments later, the face of the Vex'thari commander filled her screen. A beautiful, geometric pattern of crystalline structures that glowed with deep blue and violet light. Commander, this is Captain Hassan of Earth. I have a proposal. What followed would be discussed in academic circles for centuries. Hassan's plan was audacious in its simplicity. The Endeavour began a series of surgical precision strikes, not against the Krell fleet, but against the mining operations. Precise, targeted attacks using every ounce of firepower to destroy the extraction equipment, to collapse the mining sites, to make the planet worthless to plunder. Meanwhile, she coordinated with Aliz to evacuate the civilian population from the surface. Every refugee ship, every transport, every capable vessel was filled with Vex'thari people and moved toward deep space. She broadcast a message across all frequencies. A message that would later become famous, not just among humans, but across the galaxy. This is Captain Mahira Hassan of Earth. I am declaring this world under Earth protection. Any further attacks will be met with force. I am one captain commanding one ship. I have no reinforcements coming. I have no strategic advantage. But I am telling you now, you will not have this world. You will not have these people. Not today. Not while I am here. It was absurd. It was a bluff of the highest order. One human ship declaring itself the guardian against 4,000 warships of the most unified, most powerful military force in their sector. And then, something unexpected happened. The Krell, for the first time in their hive consciousness, hesitated. Not out of fear, they had no concept of fear, but out of something the Overmind had never encountered before, a pattern it did not understand. A tactical decision that made no logical sense. A lone ship vastly outgunned, choosing to stand and fight anyway. In the brief moment of that hesitation, humanity moved. The Endeavor's engines burned hot as Hassan executed a maneuver that was part calculated risk, part pure desperation. She sent the great ship on a collision course directly toward the largest Krell vessel. "Evasion," Lu shouted. "Negative," Hassan replied calmly. "Charge forward. Full shield power forward." The crew held their breath. And in that moment, that single crystalline moment, the Krell made a choice. They fired on the Endeavor. But in doing so, they fired through a formation of Vex'thari refugee ships that had been evacuating in the same vector. 17,000 people died in that attack. But it proved something to AELs, something crucial. The humans weren't trying to win. They were trying to save lives. Even at the cost of their own lives, even when it meant tactical disadvantage, even when it meant certain death. That revelation ignited something in the Vex'thari commander. AELs took every remaining ship she had and began a new assault. Not to defeat the Krell. They both knew that was impossible. But to buy time, to create chaos, to ensure that every refugee had a chance to escape. The battle that followed was brief, fierce, and ultimately lopsided in the Krell's favor. The Endeavor took devastating fire. Sections depressurized. The crew fought hard to keep the ship together, to keep the shields up, to protect the refugee convoy. And then, just as the Krell were moving in for the killing blow, Hassan did something that made even the hive mind pause. She opened a personal channel to the Krell overmind. "You've won," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. "We both know that, but I want you to know something. You can destroy my ship. You can destroy my life. But you cannot destroy what we tried to do here. You cannot destroy the fact that we chose to help. That we came knowing we would likely die. That's human. That's what we are." The Krell did not respond with words. They responded the only way they knew how. They launched a planet-killer missile directly at the Endeavor. And Captain Mahira Hassan, with full knowledge of what it meant, turned her ship to intercept it. The Endeavor was vaporized in an instant, but her sacrifice bought the refugee convoy time. 63,000 Vex'thari made it to deep space. 63,000 people who would live to tell the story of the humans, of the strange, chaotic species that had thrown itself at the stars themselves rather than abandon someone in need. The Krell continued their plunder of Kepler-7. They harvested what remained of the planet and left, moving on to other conquests, as was their way. But something had changed in them. Not emotionally, they had no emotions. But in their logic matrices, something had shifted. A pattern they had not been prepared to encounter. And across the galaxy, the story spread. The humans had come, not with glory, not with victory, but with something the galaxy had nearly forgotten. They had come with sacrifice, with compassion, with a willingness to die for strangers. Scholar Vex'thari stood on the observation deck of the refugee ship carrying the last of her people and looked back at Kepler-7, fading into the distance. An AIDS specialist from Earth, Dr. Sarah Williams, stood beside her. "Your people will rebuild," Williams said quietly, "and we will help. That's what allies do." Liz, her body damaged but alive, turned to face this young human woman. And in that moment, she understood something that every diplomat in the galaxy would eventually come to learn. Humans were not strong because they were the most powerful. They were not wise because they were the oldest. They were extraordinary because they cared. They loved. They sacrificed. In a galaxy full of ancient powers and calculated efficiency, humanity had brought something revolutionary to the table. They brought their hearts. And for the first time, the Vex'thari, along with every species that would hear this tale, understood what it truly meant to be human. The Endeavor was gone. Captain Hassan was gone. But her name would echo across the stars for generations. And Earth, the young world, the chaotic species that no one had taken seriously, became something the galaxy could never ignore again. Not because of weapons, not because of power, but because of one simple, revolutionary truth. They showed up. When it mattered most, when all hope seemed lost, When every logical calculation said to stay home and stay safe, they showed up. And for the first time, the galaxy understood what it truly meant to be. If this story moved you, if it reminded you why humanity's greatest strength has always been our compassion, our courage, and our refusal to abandon those in need, subscribe for more tales of humanity's journey among the stars. Because the universe is vast, but humanity's heart is larger still.